It's time. It's episode 69, the ATM podcast. My name is Martin Devlin. I work for the platform. And normally every Tuesday, it's a Thursday that feels like a Tuesday because it's been a weird week with a day off in between. Mark Watson joins us. He's called Olympic Games. He commentates sport all over the world. He is opinionated, which is why we love him. He loves his sport and he loves telling you why. He loves and hates his sport. Watto, we're talking about the NRL players who have been stopped at immigration from going into the US for this Vegas round. South Africa versus New Zealand, the cricket test, and what a farce the South African side is. Peter Marnie, is that a sledge or is that a bitter man whose Irish team lost in the quarterfinals? The Super Rugby warm-ups, have you got anything to say about that? Anyway, we'll add it all to it. Plus, of course, Liverpool have just blown the Premier League title.
Apologise to me!
Kicking it off with the cricket, mate, and I started the program just ferocious at the South African side, which is effectively a really poor provincial side. I was watching it yesterday, mate, and some of the batting was just so low rent and so unprofessional, cross-batted swipes and everything, taking nothing away from the fact that we dicked them and we dicked them hard. But it's disappointing, isn't it? I just don't understand this. Oh, you've got to leave 56 players behind? Really?
Yeah, the ICC just need to stamp down on this. I mean, we've already said it, Martin. Cricket's just lost its identity in Test cricket. Very much been driven by England and I think always traditionally Australia and India. We've seen with the recent Test results, West Indies beating Australia, England beating India, wonderful Ashes series. That is still the global point of view. That is still really what people want. That is how cricket is measured. And for South Africa to suddenly put their T20 competition ahead of international Test cricket, something needs to be done about it because it's not good. And it is, a South African C team. And, and what that then leads to is people start belittling some of the achievements of, say, Kane Williamson. So he hits back-to-back hundreds and you read some of the comments and go, oh, yeah, but it was against the South African C team. And you go, well, history probably won't remember that, but there is just a little bit of merit in it. South Africa really have only, in the last 30 years sort of come back into the international sort of wilderness and or out of the wilderness and sort of into sort of being accepted again. Post-apartheid, and you'd think that you'd still be wanting to do everything you can to sort of endear yourself. I just find it appalling. I think it's also an insult to those great South African players that have played for South Africa in the past, yeah. and just seeing these so-called C-grade players now being capped, and then you go back through the apartheid era, some of the great players that probably never got to play for South Africa because of that. And it just starts to look like franchise cricket. What are we going to do? Oh, let's just send out, let's just...
Well, I think it's insulting to New Zealand because they obviously thought that we're not that good anyway and they don't care. But this is a rivalry that's gone back 92 years. We've played 17 separate series against them and they've never lost to us. And when you put that on a piece of paper in front of you and go, so none of that means anything anymore, does it? Well, in that case, the games don't mean anything. That's how I equate it.
But look, this T20 competition in South Africa is going the same way of the Big Bash and most T20 competitions around the world, Martin, where they're just going to end up, too much of it. People are going to get bored of it, and it's not a sustainable model, these T20 comps. So in the short term, you go, oh, look at how many people are coming in next year. There won't be as many, and then in 3 or 4 years' time, the competition will be dead. History will say, though, that the South African team got murdered in New Zealand in Test cricket. It's just Harlem Globetrotters, isn't it? That's sort of where we're going with it.
Apologise to me!
Let's move on to the NRL players, including Reece Walsh, stopped at the border. And look, this is no surprise to me at all. This is what happens when you try and enter the US. You've got to fill out the various forms and on it to say, have you been in trouble? Have you had a conviction? Have you ever been arrested? And if you say no, well, you're lying, and then you'll never get back in there again. And this is what these bozos who play the sport just don't seem to get, do they? Valentine Holmes last year waving a bag, supposedly containing drugs and then saying, oh, I was just joking. Reece Walsh getting done with having cocaine in his pocket at a nightclub. I mean, these guys, smoke blown up backsides. Everything they do is covered up the whole time. They get away with whatever they want. But this is where it comes home to roost. Because if you are that much of an idiot that you can't actually see past the trees into where the meadow is, well, you try and get into the US and they'll just say no, mate.
Yeah, I know, but that's the thing, is it? I mean, half these guys are just idiots and morons. But you do also have to question the management and these people behind the scenes. And the bigger question is here: why are we even taking the NRL up to Las Vegas? And why are we
It's a
doing
gimmick,
all
mate.
of this stuff?
It's a sales promotion, is what it is.
The NRL is never going to break into the United States. Rugby's never going to break properly into the United States. I mean, I heard on your show, of the 100 highest rating programs in America, 80 of them are sort of NFL.
No, 99 of them are NFL, mate.
I mean, we saw the damage that the Breakers ended up incurring because they went and played some NBA games and picked up some major injuries. To me, it's actually just taking it away from the fan here. But it's just it just reinforces, unfortunately, because I don't agree with it, but it just reinforces a lot of just stereotypes that have always associated with rugby league, that they're just basically a bunch of dumbasses who, really, really are not that bloody smart. It's never been a game that's been run particularly well. And when you get situations like that, and you also get the off-field antics that happen throughout the year with the players, and you go back to the Reece Walsh, it just reinforces actually some really I think archaic stereotypes. And rugby league just need to be better. They just need to be smarter on this.
Well, they've got such a great product. That's the whole point, isn't it? And this is what I don't, and look, it's these delusions of grandeur that league has, that rugby has. At least with the AFL, they've decided and realised that their game is Australia-centric, and leave it there. The NRL have got a brilliant product. It's never going to match world football. It's never going to be global basketball. It's never going to be as big as the American competitions in America. But you're generating hundreds of millions of dollars. Just be bloody happy with it.
Yeah, no, well said, Martin. Well said indeed. I just think, look, you're trying to sort of reach into these bigger markets. What about just getting a decent international test sort of calendar sorted out now, and just try and actually continue to build and promote the game in the Pacific Island nations, and just
those bits of the world that are already in love with them.
Cash grab, mate.
Totally
I mean,
agree.
it's no different than the All Blacks taking a test match to Fiji, isn't it? I mean, what an absolute joke that is, Martin. Like, seriously, we're just going to put out an All Black B team.
Yeah,
we're
we
just
are.
franchising the All Black brand
That's
again.
it.
We're going to go there. We're going to play Fiji
and San Diego, of all stupid places where there's no rugby in San Diego. I just think this is insulting to the Pacific Islands. And Mark, look, if it wasn't for the fact that Mark Robinson and all his cronies continually spout this bollocks about how they're going to support Pacific Island rugby, it just stop telling us this. You aren't. You're not interested in it. You are governed by Silver Lake. You're governed by World Rugby. You do what you're told, and this is a cash grab to go to San Diego. Well, that's okay, as long as you put your hand up and are honest about it. That's what I despise about Mark Robinson. It's just stop the management speak, the cliches and the BS, mate. If you wanted to take it to Fiji, you could take it to Fiji. The fact you're not taking it to Fiji says you don't want to take it to Fiji. It's that simple, isn't it?
No, look, the whole thing with New Zealand rugby, everything is a cash grab, and they've forgotten some of the intangibles. Look, we've just seen the damage done to New Zealand cricket, haven't we, when they decided to take the cash and go and put it on the Spark platform and lose 90% of their audience, and then wonder why kids the next day weren't mimicking New Zealand batsmen who had done great things in a test match because no one had actually seen it. And this is what New Zealand rugby continue to do. That's a cash grab. It's a cash grab. Meanwhile, Super Rugby's dying, NPC's dying. All of our players are going overseas because there's not enough money to pay for them all. And then, at the same time, stand up there and pontificate around, as you say, this virtue signaling around us caring about the Pacific Islands. They don't give a damn, mate. They only give a damn about the bottom line, mate. As I've said it before, the only people that are benefiting in all of this are the players and some of the administrators. And it's very, very disingenuous.
Apologise to me!
Couple of quick topics before we wrap it all up. Peter Marnie saying that this France-Ireland game is the World Cup final that everyone wanted to see. And again, until you actually get the context of this, or whether he is tongue-in-cheek, but the way it was reported, it was serious, and I assume it was serious if that's the way it was reported. What a dumbass thing to say that is. Really, who? The rugby world celebrated because you weren't good enough, mate. It's as simple as that. But it just goes to show the utter bitterness that still exists, doesn't it? And the fact that Ireland, and this says to me, you did choke that quarterfinal. That's exactly what that comment tells me. You choked the quarterfinal.
Oh, is it the dream final everybody wanted? Maybe in the Northern Hemisphere, maybe if you're Irish.
I'd say no. I'd say England would be the dream final in the Northern Hemisphere, wouldn't it?
When I when I watch the Football World Cup, if you're asking me what a dream final is, I want to see Brazil in it. You know what I mean? If I'm watching a Rugby World Cup final, I want the damn All Blacks in it. They're the biggest brand in the world, mate. You go to the Southern Hemisphere. What does the Southern Hemisphere want? They want South Africa and New Zealand, which they got. I just hate the arrogance of the Northern Hemisphere. You know, they tell me how Brian O'Driscoll is the greatest centre that's ever played the game. Well, he might have been a great player for bloody Ireland, mate, but you take the greatest All Black centre of all time or the greatest South African centre of all time, and they're always going to be better than the greatest Northern Hemisphere. Yeah, Ireland just have to move on. The Northern Hemisphere have to move on. You know, prior to the tournament, they're telling us how it's going to be the first time we're going to have 4 Northern Hemisphere teams in the semi-finals.
Well, they got none.
They're going to go on.
Oh, they got one.
They
got
none,
one.
Mate.
No, they got one. They got England. They got England.
They continue to do it, and they've done it for years, and they've just got to actually, move past it. I mean, it ended up being, you know, due to the red cards and stuff, ended up being just a one-way Irish sort of dominant performance, didn't it? You know, World Cups are fickle. They're an unusual tournament. Am I happy South Africa won it? No, I'm not. I'm absolutely gutted, but you know, I'd argue that a lot of the world were pleased that it was a South Africa-New Zealand final. And yeah, as you say, I still think they're bitter and twisted. They still just can't let this go. I mean, it'll be intriguing later in the year when the All Blacks end up playing Ireland again and how much interest will be in that. And, you know, and fingers crossed Scott Robertson and the boys can go over there and get the damage done again.
Devlin.
I'm as mad as hell, and I'm not going to take this anymore.
The Platform.